Go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the USTA South Carolina's College Coaches Webinar Series. My name is Pamela Banks, and I am the Manager of Community Engagement, and co-presenting today is Amanda Morelli. She serves as the Manager of Tournaments and Player Development. And we're just excited to have our coach on the panel today talking with us. His name is Coach Matthew Walters. He's the assistant coach at Clemson University. Just to tell you a few facts about Coach Walters, he grew up in Jonesboro, Arkansas. He played at the University of Arkansas from 2008 to 2012. He was instrumental in starting the Apex Tennis Academy in Fayetteville, Arkansas. He gained additional experience at the IMG Academy for a few years. And he also coached Miomir Kecmanovic. That's a tongue twister for my southern lips, who's also number 47 in the world right now. He went on to be an assistant coach at UCF and Mississippi State before coming to Clemson University as assistant coach in 2019. We want to welcome you again, Coach Matthew Walters, on our panel today, and we're going to affectionately call you Matt going forward.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, excited for you to be here. So we're just going to dive straight in. We're going to take it all the way back to the beginning. What age did you start playing tennis, and who inspired you to start playing tennis?
Yeah, so growing up in Jonesboro, Arkansas, we have a community of tennis courts and tennis clubs, and so I actually grew up about 200 yards from Ridgepoint Tennis Center in Jonesboro. And so I always played baseball and basketball and soccer and all these other sports. And I was never too interested in tennis. But my dad played at Arkansas State University back when they had a men's team. And so he always played the men's leagues, USTA, things like that. And he just took me over one day, and I just started hitting. And the local pro, his name's Keith Evans, who now works in Oxford, Mississippi, he saw me and was like, "Oh, you have some ability, you have some hand-eye coordination, maybe you should start playing tennis." And so I picked it up more as a side sport because I was playing baseball 70 games a summer, things like that. And then started having some success early on, and then chose tennis over baseball, let's say around 14 years old, and stuck with tennis and basketball all the way through high school.
Gotcha. Yeah, I played a lot of different sports growing up too. Well, this leads right into the next question, which is, do you think kids should specialize in one sport or play multiple sports?
Yeah, so that's a great question. My dad, who also played a huge part of me playing tennis, obviously, because he loved tennis as well, and so he put me in a lot of different sports growing up, and so he put me in all those different sports, soccer, basketball, and it helped me in my tennis. I think it also depends. I think it's a loaded question. It depends on how good you really are. So, like for a guy like Kecmanovic, for example, who has been a phenom since he was 12 years old, number one in the Europe under 12s, under 14s. I think it can be difficult at that level to play a bunch of different sports because of maybe injury and things like that when you're top in the world at your age group, right? But for a guy like me that was top 10 in the South, top 20 in the South, at 12 and 14 and things like that, I think it's a great idea because it gets you involved in team sports. It helps you communicate with other people. I think it's a great idea depending on your level and where you're at.
Okay.
That's a good answer.
Good answer. So, Coach, I'm going to be off script just a little bit. Since you were a junior player and a college player, but especially when you were a junior player, did you ever get so frustrated that you felt like throwing in the towel? And if so, how'd you get through it?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So at 14, when I was making my decision between baseball and tennis, I actually quit tennis for about 3 months. It was more of a forced quit from my parents because this is going to sound really bad, but I got kicked out of a national open because I threw my racket over the fence. And so
that'll do it.
Yeah, that'll do it. So any kids listening to this, do not do that. But I had an attitude issue because I just hated losing so much. And I just wanted to win so badly. And I didn't know how to handle failure as a young kid. Because in other sports, we were successful. But now as an individual, the failure's on you, right? If you lose and things like that. And so they took me away from tennis. I had to read the book Winning Ugly and do a book report on it from Brad Gilbert. And I picked up golf for 3 months, and I was terrible. And so I was like, I got to do whatever I can to get back in tennis. And so my attitude got better, but it wasn't until after college until I actually recognized my failures and things like that, and learning how to control my attitude better. But I got through it, that kind of burnout phase of stepping away for a little bit and seeing how much I missed it. And I tell every junior player, like, it can't come from your parents. Like, this passion and love can't come from them. It has to come from you. And so stepping away from the game, it helped me realize, like, I really do love this. Like, I really love competing. I love playing. I love improving. Now it's time to control my emotions and learning how to do that, which can be difficult.
Okay. Well, I know you threw a racket in your past because you just told us all that stuff. But How do you define sportsmanship?
Yeah. So I think sportsmanship starts with integrity. It starts with your own character. When no one's looking, when there's not a ref on your court, can you call the lines fair? Now, that doesn't mean giving your opponent calls. If you're playing at a competitive level, you don't want to be giving away calls. But in your heart, can you say that you called it fair and didn't cheat your opponent at the end of a match? So I think it starts with that integrity. And I think sportsmanship is competing at your hardest, like giving your best, right? And so, like, you're going to give your best and your opponent gives his best, and you can shake his hand at the end of the day and be like, man, that was a good match. Like, that was fair. Like, we both competed. We respected each other. I didn't do anything to bring down my opponent to maybe get on top of him. But I respected him. I stayed on my side of the court, and I played with integrity, and I played to the best of my ability, and then, let the chips fall where they may. So, and then shake his hand at the end of the day and tell him good match and good luck.
Those are some great examples. Thanks.
Yes.
Matt, how would you describe your coaching style?
I think it starts with relationships with my guys. I think no player will listen and take it to heart unless they trust you, right? And how do you build trust? It starts with spending time with that player, building the relationship not only on court but off court. I think it's caring about the individual as a whole, and not just the tennis aspect. It's the academics, it's the personal life, it's how they're doing emotionally. And so I think it starts there. And then we can branch into technical stuff and tennis specific things, but I don't think you can get anywhere with a player as a good coach unless you understand that individual and what they've been through in their past and what they're currently going through presently. And so I think the best way to define my coaching style is relational, because, in the big moments, I want them to be able to trust that I have their best interests at heart, not only just for winning and them succeeding, but them as an individual as well. And so, again, I think that's a loaded question, but we can get into technical and tennis stuff. But I think the most important part is caring for the individual and knowing that you love them and that they love you. And then I think you can really take off as a player when they know you have their best interest in heart, not only from a tennis aspect, but a personal one.
Yeah, about the trust. I agree. What traits do you look for in a recruit?
It's another good question, man. You are throwing out some good ones. I think number one is kind of what we talked about, the character integrity part. I have a list of traits that I go recruit. I've been all around the world in almost every European country recruiting for the last 4 years. And how I recruit is I go to the practice courts. I go to where they don't think anyone's watching them. And I see how they react to their coach. I see how they treat their parents, if their parents are with them. I see how they treat and talk to their friends. And I'm not, I obviously have my Clemson stuff on, or UCF, or wherever I've been, but I try to stay far enough away to where they don't know someone's watching them. And I just observe, I just observe, I start there. I don't start with technique. We get there. We get to technique. We get to their results. We get to their level, because at the end of the day in the ACC, like, if you can't play at a certain level, we're probably not going to reach out to you, because, results still matter in some sense of the game. Right. But
Correct.
where I start is watching how they treat their coach, watching how they treat themselves. Like, do you have self-respect for yourself to not continually beat yourself up and chunk your racket over the fence like I did at 14? Like that. I learned from that. And I'm not judging somebody from one screenshot. Like, I'm at a tournament for a week, 2 weeks. I'm in Europe for a month recruiting, so I'm following these guys around. So I'm not just gonna push a kid to the side because he does one thing wrong, right? Like, I understand, like, people have bad days, right? But at the same time, I'm gonna keep following you if I think your level's good enough. But it starts there, and we always say this. Our head coach Robbie says this. We spend more time, and this, I hope this doesn't sound bad, but we spend more time marking kids off the list than we do keeping them on the list of our guys we're recruiting, because culture of our program, since we're brand new, is so critical that we can't have one kid that wants to go his own way or wants to get in other things that we don't value as a program, that can tear and bring down the rest of the guys on the team, because it's such a small team. So I think starting there, obviously the level has to be there, but it starts with your character. If I go to a Southern tournament in Mobile, Alabama, and you got your mama with you, and you're treating your mom badly in front of other kids just because you want to be cool and look cool in front of them, if you do that consistently, I'm not going to talk to you. I don't care how good you are, because if you're not respecting your parents, you're not going to respect me, right? And so in those tension pressure moments, and so I think that's critical for these junior players, because the first thing is you got to respect your mom and dad. Now, I know every situation is different, right? I get it. But, if you do that in public, what do you do in private? So I think that's where we start.
Yeah, it's got to be amplified for sure.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I know that everybody's affected by COVID-19. We have a different way of communicating. We could have had this session in person and had a cheeseburger with it. But how has COVID-19 impacted your program and how you connect with your players? This is a two-part question.
Yeah. So, obviously it affected our program because we finished the season early. And we were actually having our best practice of the year when we got the phone call. We were at Wake Forest on a Thursday. We were going to play them on a Friday. And we had some injuries, and we had some guys that weren't going to play. So, Wake Forest is a great team. So we were going to probably struggle on Friday. But we were having a great time, great practice, got the phone call that the season was finished. And, it was – at the time it was painful because, these guys didn't know if they were going to get an extra year yet or not. Now they've come out and you get your coronavirus years and stuff like that. But I think it definitely made an impact on the relationship side, the in-person side, because, a lot of what we do as tennis coaches is face-to-face. It's a foot or two away, right? You put their hand on your shoulder and things like that. You love on them. And so we've had to adapt in that area. A lot of Zoom calls like this, a lot of text messages, because I think not only as tennis players, but as people, we sometimes isolate ourselves. Like, we tend to just be very comfortable with where we're at in our little house, in our little world. And it's important as coaches to reach out and communicate and be vulnerable with these guys, you know, and not always be like everything's okay, you know, and we tend to do that as humans. We tend to just cover up some things. We don't want to talk about it. But we've had some great conversations of guys, you know, struggling with this, and being able to comfort them and being able to walk with them and almost disciple them in this time of like, you know, these are some things you can do to help take your mind, you know, off the negativity or doubt or whatever, right? But also being comfortable enough to share those emotions. And that only grows our relationship with a player coach, because the more vulnerable you can be, which means you're going to trust each other a little bit more, right, with that information.
Right.
And we can really grow as a team. And then obviously with our new signees, we've kind of branched them in now with the team that's going forward. And we've had some really good conversations, getting to know each other. But I think the key is being able to be vulnerable, and talk about what's going on, and creating a safe place as coaches, being like, we're not gonna judge you. You know, we're not gonna say you should be thinking this way. But we would like to help you walk through this, and to get to a place where you're healthy and you feel safe and you're positive. But it takes time for some guys.
But you guys are meeting together as a team still pretty regularly.
Yeah. So every Friday we have a meeting with the guys. We have a Zoom meeting. We check in. You know, I check in during the week through text messages, whether it's text or phone calls. And yeah, I mean, we do it every Friday. I think
that's perfect.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. Amanda, you go ahead.
What do you think is the most important thing that players and parents who are thinking about a college career in tennis need to know?
Good. Another good weighted question. So what do you think they should know? Well, I think it starts with what we talked about earlier. It's the character integrity part. You know, it's not easy to be a parent, a tennis parent. It's not easy. And I say all that to know that my dad went through it. He took me to every tournament, and I did not treat him as well as he should have been treated, you know? And I was young and I was dumb. So looking back, I can talk to parents and players and be like, okay, like tennis can create a lot of pressure. Tennis can create a lot of tension, and that tends to, with that pressure and that tension, even though it might not come from the parent, it's probably going to come from the kid internally, which means he might lash out a couple times or be frustrated with you or whatever. So I think first getting that relationship down between your kid and your parent, knowing that, you know, they're not going to win every match. You know, they're not always going to play great. You know, there's going to be times they're going to have a bad day. But also knowing as a kid, your parents aren't perfect. Like, they're not always going to say the right thing in the right moment. You know, people make mistakes, right? And so there's got to be some kind of grace and forgiveness, going back and forth, because when you're on the road, you're in the hotel, you're spending 24 hours a day with each other, there's going to be tension, right? So I think it's starting with that relationship. And then when you're looking for a school, knowing what kind of program you want. Like, first, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in California, or do you want to be on the East Coast? You want to be in the North? You want to be in the South, right? Like, you want to play indoor tennis, because most of the time when you're in the North, you're going to be playing indoor tennis till mid-March or end of March, right? Depending on the weather. So are you more of an indoor player? Are you an outdoor player? I think, what kind of culture do you want to be a part of? Do you want a very team-based culture where the guys really get to know each other? Or do you want more of an individualized development culture? And you find that out by talking to coaches, discerning who's a salesman and who's a tennis coach, right? I mean, just call it like we see it. Like, you know, you got to understand, like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for your kid to get better in tennis? Or are you looking just to go to a program where they pass out the tennis balls, right? And so, there's a balance. So I think it's doing your homework, you know, realizing, looking back at the past teams and seeing who's transferred, a lot, like if you have a program that people have transferred out a lot of, okay, you can ask that coach that question. Maybe it's not because of the coach, maybe it's because the players, right? And so I think you really have to do your homework on the program, taking multiple unofficial visits, because you only get one official visit, right? And so taking multiple unofficials, if you can, if it allows you to financially, to see what it's really like. Because it's tough on a one official visit. You get 48 hours. And of course, we as coaches are going to put our best foot forward in those 48 hours. We're going to show you the best version of ourselves, right? And hopefully as coaches, we're not selling you, we're just being ourselves. But at the end of the day, that 48 hours, we're going to put the best version of ourselves out there because we want you, okay? So some coaches do a really good job of putting that out there for those 48 hours, but then they're a completely different person the other times that you're training or you're coaching, right? And so if you can go on campus or talk a lot other than those 48 hours, maybe you can pick up some red flags. Maybe you can ask those personal questions that you need to ask. But I think it's creating a list of what you want and what you don't want, realizing where you want to be geographically, and then doing your homework, like looking at the past, looking at the present, asking those tough questions like you're asking me right now. You're asking me some good questions. And so, and not just committing somewhere because it's Clemson, not committing somewhere because it's South Carolina or whatever, right? Like it's okay to, if you're to go to a Division II school, Division III school, or lower Division I school, because at the end of the day, you want to make an impact. And if you're new UTR, if we're honest with you and be like, hey, we don't see you in the lineup, but you still want to come to Clemson, that's great. But you can make an impact at a smaller school and go to a conference championship and things like this. And so it's weighing those options. But I think making a list, doing your homework, but first creating that relationship between the tennis player and the parent is critical. Because obviously that's your parent, right? So I think starting there and then going off of that, I think that's important.
I agree. All right, Pamela.
You know what time it is? Ding-a-ling-a-ling. It's time for rapid fire, Coach. Are you ready?
I hope I'm ready.
You better say born ready.
I was born ready. Come on, Matt.
All right then.
Matt, if you could play tennis with any pro, past or present, who would it be and why?
If I could play tennis, I would have to say Jimmy Connors because of his competitive nature.
I bet he's never thrown a racket.
Yeah, no, I love Jimmy. I mean, obviously he's thrown a racket, but John Roddick at UCF used to tell me stories of Jimmy Connors with Andy Roddick, his brother, when he coached him, and just how competitive and how much he desired to be great. And I'm like, I just love an hour with that guy. So,
you want to use one of those T2000s that he used?
Now I don't know if I'm talented enough for that. I'm going to be honest. I need
the
that.
The face is about that big on it.
I used to use the Federer 90 square inch in juniors. People call me crazy. So it wouldn't be too much different, I'm sure.
Well, would you want to play against him or with him?
Probably with, because even at his age, he could probably still whoop me. So I'd probably, I would love to compete, but I think I would get killed. So I'd more probably want to play with.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you guys would be a great doubles pair.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Coach, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
What's the best advice I've ever gotten? Man, there's a lot. I have a lot of great mentors in my life, spiritually, and then obviously in tennis. I think it's obviously honor your parents, honor your family, and your mom and dad, but also love people, like care about people, don't judge people. Everyone's in a different season of life. Everyone handles stuff differently. So just being there, you don't even have to say anything, just being there, being present, but loving people, caring about people, your players or just in your community, and just being that shoulder to lean on. I think that's probably the best thing and the most important thing I've learned is people are important, and valuing them for where they're at in their season of life.
Okay, that's perfect.
What TV and or movies have you been watching during your time at home?
So I've been actually reading a lot. So I've been reading a lot of books, but my wife has gotten me into the Netflix series Outer Banks, I think it's called. And so we watched that. We watched all of it now. And so we were doing that. And then I'm trying to think, we watched Designated Survivor all the way through. I think that was like 3 seasons worth. But yeah, she's in nurse practitioner school. So she's been grinding online and I've been recruiting and reading. So I would say it's a mix of reading and that Outer Banks, a little bit of Netflix here and there, and the Michael Jordan, the ESPN on Sunday nights.
Everybody's been telling us that we got to watch it. What have you been reading?
Oh my gosh. End of season 7, those 2 minutes at the end of season 7 when he talked about leadership and not every leader is going to lead like him, obviously, but just how much his passion for the game. I cried. I think I had tears of joy. I loved it.
He didn't mind calling his teammates out either, did he?
Yeah. I loved his quote. He said, I never asked my teammates to do something I didn't do first. And so that's what leaders do. They lead the way, they go out in front, and they set an example. So
you may have already told us this. Who's your favorite tennis player of all time?
Favorite
Why?
tennis player of all time. So this is going to sound really bad, but my favorite player growing up was Murat Safin. So obviously he was very controversial, very just crazy guy.
Now I get the racket throwing. Now I see it.
He's passionate, though.
He was so talented, and I got my backhand from him. Like I would watch how he got up on his right foot, jumping backhand. But I loved him and Leighton Hewitt. Like I loved Leighton. Shorter guy, probably not the most, well, he's talented, obviously, but probably not the most God-given ability, from a height aspect and power aspect. But he found ways to win. He competed. Mm-hmm. He competed every point. And I loved watching him because it was his passion. It was his fire for the game. And he got knocked down. He would get back up again. He didn't care, and so I would say, yeah, he was scrappy. He had a lot of grit. And so those were definitely my 2 favorite ones growing up. And obviously you have the Federers, you have the Nadals, and people like that. But I love watching Miomir. Obviously I worked with him, and I'm biased towards him. But I love watching him and how much he's grown. And I'm one of his biggest fans as well.
Oh, nice.
I did love Safin. It was entertaining. Like, no matter what.
He was extremely controversial. Yeah, extremely controversial. He did a lot of things that you would never want anyone to do. But from a just tennis aspect, I just loved his talent and how much ability he had.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what has been your go-to snack while you've been at home?
My go-to snack. So I'm not a huge snacker. And so my wife is very big on the healthy kick as well. So like whatever I would snack, whether it's Tostitos chips or chocolate chip cookies or Oreos, or what I would usually do if I was like a bachelor, let's say back in my heyday when I was actually in really good shape and working out 6 hours a day, I could eat all of that. Right. But when I turned 30 in October, it tends to hang on a little bit more. So I'm now trying to be as healthy as possible and not snack too much, I guess. But I would say chocolate chip cookies and Oreos would be my go-to if my wife wouldn't catch me every time I tried. So.
Okay. I know you've been doing a lot of reading and a little bit of movie watching, but have you had any hobbies or home improvement activities that you've engaged in since you've been home? Yeah, so
I've become a really good cleaner of the house. In my opinion, I think I'm newly married, so I think anyone listening to this as a husband, it's like my definition of clean and her definition of clean. And so I am continually learning what her definition is through because I keep failing. And so I've been doing a lot of vacuuming, cleaning the bathrooms and, cleaning up after myself. I think that's the key, constantly. And so I think that's what I've been doing a lot. We have to stain our deck when we get home, so I got to do that. We had a bunch of birds making nests in our front porch, so I got to clean that when I get home. And so, but I would say the thing I've been doing the most is cleaning, and learning what the definition of cleaning is. Consistency.
That's all right.
Yeah, we're learning.
Gotta keep mama happy, you know?
It's a process.
Happy wife, happy life. That's what they say, right?
There it is.
Okay, so this is kind of a two-part question, Matt. So what is your favorite pump up song, like your walkout song on the court? And then does your team, do y'all pick a song that you all listen to, or is everybody kind of listening to their own music on match days?
Yeah, so I think lately the song I've been listening to on my runs and on our bike rides is it's by Elevation Worship. It's called Graves in the Gardens, and it's just like a worship song, and it's just pumps me up. It fires me up. It's I want to run faster, So I would say that's my song right now. But for our guys, we obviously have our warm-up CD that we do when we're warming up. They all get to choose a song that they want on the warm-up CD as long as it's clean. We make sure that it's very clean, no cuss words or anything. But they do have I don't know what it's called, but they have a Spanish song that's in Spanish. So most of our guys don't know Spanish, but they have memorized it. And I don't even think they know what it says, to be honest. But it's the guy told me, they told me it's almost like a rite of passage. We actually have 6 new guys coming in this year, and they've already sent it to the 6 new guys. And all right, 2 of the guys know Spanish. So they're this is going to be easy. But the other 4 guys that don't know Spanish, they're you got to memorize this. So I'm all right. That's just kind of it's their thing that they do. But I don't know what it's called, but I just think it's hilarious because these guys are just speaking in Spanish, singing Spanish songs. They don't even know what it means. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
So where's the first place that you and your wife want to go once, all of the restrictions are lifted?
Yeah. So I think, obviously we're new to Clemson. We came in July from UCF in Orlando. And so we have been to the Highlands and Cashers in North Carolina. We went up there. She's a big hiker. So I think when all this kind of subsides, we'll probably go up there and spend a weekend or a week hiking. I'm not a big hiker. I'm the type of guy that get me on a beach with a book and an umbrella and a good old Glacier Freeze Gatorade, and I'll be happy. I'm the happiest guy alive. But she loves to hike, and so I love to hike. And now, and so we'll probably go up there. We've never been to Charleston either. I've been for recruiting, but she's never been. And so that's kind of my thing. Go to the beach, eat some good food and relax. So we'll probably do a little bit of both in that area.
That sounds perfect.
Yes.
Charleston's great. Okay, what is your biggest coach pet peeve?
Man, what is my biggest coaching pet peeve? From a player, what is just icks me? Effort, something you can control. Effort is a big thing for me because I think at our level, where we want to be at Clemson, where the guys I've coached as well have been blessed to coach. It's I don't really want to be a cheerleader. I don't want to have to come every day to convince you to try. It's just man, I would rather coach someone with a lot less ability, but will run through a wall to play tennis than coach someone that's extremely talented. And it's you're going to have to get me going today. And I'm like, maybe that's selfish, and obviously I'm going to bring energy, right? I'm going to bring energy. I'm going to bring passion to the game. And if you're having a bad day, obviously I'm going to put my arm around you. We're going to get through this together, right? Because sometimes you only have 70% of yourself, and that's fine. Like, just give me 70% of yourself that day. But someone who consistently, month after month, just doesn't bring effort or tanks and doesn't try, that gets me fired up. I just don't know.
It makes sense because that's what you were describing about Leighton Hewitt too. So what I mean, like
it's something like, obviously I understand it if you're losing and it's frustrating and you don't want to lose, but I'd rather go down fighting and with tons of effort than somebody that just like, all right, I'm done. Like, you broke my will, I'm done. And so it's obviously we're gonna have days like that. We're gonna have tough days, but consistently month after month, someone doing that, it can wear on a coach.
Yeah, you don't need another Allen Iverson version in the tennis arena. Practice.
Yeah, I will say this.
Talking about practice.
I watched I think a 30 for 30 on him on ESPN, and what that guy overcame, from his background and things like that. Oh my gosh, from a talent aspect, no one more talented than that guy. But yeah. I just don't think
he was ready game day, but practice, he wasn't into it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, here's the last question. Okay. What's the top quality that makes a good coach?
Man, I think there's two. I think empathy. I think empathy is big. Being able to level with the player, in the pressure moments, when they feel like the world's crashing down, right? And they're down 4-1 in the third, and then the last quarter on, and all the teammates are relying on them. It's bigger. It's bigger than this one match. It's bigger than that. Even if you lose, like, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, and we're going to get better, right? We're going to come back to practice, and we're just going to improve. And so it's being able to empathize in those moments with these players, whatever they're going through in that certain moment on court, and not judging them for it, right? But being able to be an ear for them to listen to, but also be a mirror for them to be like, you're panicking, right? Like, it's okay. Like, you're fine. Let's just do one point at a time here. Let's make this little adjustment, right? But then I think on the other side of that is the passion. Like, if you don't love what you do, people can sniff that out. Like, players can sniff that out, right? They're smart guys, girls, or whoever. Like, if you're not passionate and you're not empathetic towards that player, they're going to tune you out, or they're not going to trust you, right? And so you're going to be frustrated because you're not going to get the most out of them. But then also they're going to be frustrated because they know they have a coach that doesn't care, right? Or they're fake caring. Like, they put it on, But I think those are the two big ones, at least for me, that I've seen in really good coaches, is that like the Nick Bollettieri's of the world. Like, when I went down there and worked down there, it's like, man, he could empathize with the player. He could level with them and really get to their level in their eyes and look them in the eyes and motivate them, in those moments, right? But also it's the passion. Like, I have to come to the court at Clemson every day and be consistent. I can't be super passionate one day and love life and love tennis, and then come to the court another day and just be like, hey, here's the balls, have a good day, right? And so I think the third aspect is that consistency. I know you're asked for one, but I think, again, it's a little bit of a loaded question. I think empathy and passion, and then the consistency to be able to come prepared every day, passionate. And being a coach is not easy, right? I mean, what we do, we have to wear a lot of hats, right? When kids come to us, I have to be a father one day. I have to be a friend one day. I have to be a coach one day. I have to be a disciplinarian one day, and it doesn't feel good to discipline. But there's a certain standard as a coach that they want to be held to, even though it doesn't feel good, right? But they're going to look back, and I can look back as a player and be like, man, that was uncomfortable. That was a tough conversation. But thank God that coach had me sit down and discipline me, because it has helped me then have these conversations with my players today. So I think those three areas are key. And then obviously as a coach, there's a lot of different ways we can go. But I think starting there will at least help a coach get started and figure out if tennis coaching or coaching in general is the right path for them.
Well, that was very eloquently presented. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
We're wrapped up today, and we want to say thank you, Coach Matthew Walters, for being with us today. Matt, you've been awesome to learn more about yourself from and more about the game itself. So thank you very much for being on our webinar today. And Amanda, I think I speak for you as well. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me, and thank you for all you do for the state of South Carolina in tennis. We're obviously very new, and so we look forward to getting into the communities with the USTA South Carolina, but we look forward to getting to know you guys more as well, and just know that however we can help at Clemson through this or in the future, we're just a phone call away. So just thank you guys for all you do.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Have a good day. Stay safe.
You too.
Bye.